Yeah.
Okay.
All right, looks like you guys are live.
Okay.
I running with this to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Get started here.
Okay.
All right.
I gotta stand up. Pledge allegiance.
All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
So I think we want to see if Mr. Domenico is available. Is he here? I'm just looking through the attendees.
So Andy, is that you that'll have to promote them, or is that a Kathy?
Yeah, I'm actually looking to see if he's available to for further discussion.
It looks like two people have their hands raised.
Yeah. Mr. McHugh has his hand raised. I guess we can take him to see if we allow him to talk. Mr. McHugh?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Rezek.
My pleasure. Yeah. What can I help you? What can we do for you this evening? Are you representing?
Yes, I'm here for Mark D'Amico on the
Okay,
Henderson matter.
very good.
So I know, just to kind of take it from here, I know we did not close out the record on this, so I'm not really sure where we have to kind of take it from here. Are we in a position now that we can close it out? Is there anything else to add?
No, there's nothing else to add to the record. We did attempt to resolve the matter. We were unsuccessful in doing so. So at this point, we would just close the record and the board could make its decision.
Okay. So we are prepared to make a decision on this. So I'll make a motion. And Dave, stop me if I'm wrong here, just in how I have to do this. But I know our decision was to deny the appeal here. So is there a second on that?
A second.
Mike, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries.
Unanimous, sir? I guess it was unanimous.
Was.
Thank you.
Kevin, you're muted again. Kevin, I don't know why you keep going in and out.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So do we have to, is there anything else we have to add here in terms of denying the application?
Well, I think there was a second part to the application. First was the appeal, and then there was, I think in lieu of upholding their appeal, they requested a variance. Is that correct, Mr. McHugh?
Yes, so essentially what we asked for, the first grounds for relief was for a recognition of a vested right for the Subaru parking. And then the second alternative grounds was for a temporary variance for a time period. It would be up to the board, of course, to set that time period, but a temporary variance to cover the Subaru parking and also the Porsche parking.
So what we're thinking to do here is we will allow the Porsche parking for the duration of their construction. But for what's going on now with the Subaru parking, we're willing to extend it for another 3 months, so 90 days from tomorrow. And also part of that to deny, any future changes to any applications for temporary parking or anything like that, so that we don't find ourselves in this position again. And Dave, I'm not sure what kind of, again, wording you need me to put that into for that request.
Yes, I can add the legalese to the order.
So do we need to get a vote on that everybody's on board for allowing them to park the Porsche vehicles on the property for the duration of the construction, and the Subaru vehicles will have to be removed within 90 days as of tomorrow, and no future temporary parking arrangements? So all those,
I assume that's a motion.
I'm sorry, so that is a motion with
I guess you need a second.
stipulation. So is there a second?
A second.
Who is that?
All those, that was Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Unanimous again, okay.
Okay, so David, I assume that you'll be able to document that in writing, and do we need more time than the 24 hours?
Yes, if the applicant will so allow.
Yes, we do allow.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the next application is in regard to the Anderson property at 3 Plymouth.
So, all right, so I was just going to ask if we could.
I'm sorry, I think Mr. McHugh still has his hand up. Mr. McHugh, do you still wish to speak?
Oh, no, thank you. I just lowered the hand.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank you very
Thank
much. All right.
All right, so we'll move on to the next case here. So it's application Z 2020-18, Nicholas Anderson, 3 Plymouth Road, Newtown Square, PA. Pertaining to the subject property is seeking a variance as per section 172-29B, section 6 of the Newtown Township Zoning Code for side yard setbacks. Subject premise is located in the R1 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the zoning hearing process. So did we promote Mr. Anderson?
I did promote Mr. Anderson to a panelist, and trying to get him to unmute, ask to unmute.
Hello, you there?
There you are.
How you doing?
Hey guys, Nick Anderson. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So the floor is yours to present
Okay.
the case here.
We have to
Okay.
swear you in first here, Kevin. Hey, Mr. Anderson, you just swear the testimony you give be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And
Thank
you
you.
know what, too, just before you get started, let me just check with Kathy, is the file in order?
Yes, the file is in order.
Oh, Andy, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. So guys, I sent the email over with the package for the variance that we're trying to get approved. We live on 3 Plymouth Road. Based off of the setbacks and what we were trying to do, we found it pretty difficult to get what we were trying to accomplish, which is a study, a powder room, and we are doing some other things, but the part that is seems to be going over the setback line is the side study with the wraparound porch that you see on the computer screen there. After talking to all the neighbors, about our construction that we were considering on doing, our only options based off setback, initially we wanted to go forward, but we were so close to the setback line that was impossible to do. Going off to the right would put us really close to the house, to next door to us. So the only option was the left, where we do have a lot of room in between each home. We have a huge property, but we seem to be positioned, the angle of the home and the setback just made it very difficult. We came up with this plan after talking to the neighbors, because our only other option would then be to go backwards in order to extend the house, even though with a split level, all the architects we spoke to, that became pretty difficult to get to accomplish what we wanted. Going backwards would infringe on the view of all of our neighbors, and they all said absolutely not. That is not what we would like you to do. This is the plan that we came up with. We took this around to the neighborhood and had all the neighbors agree that, you know, this was fine. And I believe we're just about 7 feet over the setback line.
You know what, not to interrupt you here, but do we have any party protestants that are here, or just, I know I was supposed to check that in the beginning here, so.
If there are, if the attendees would raise their hand, I could tell that way. And
It looks like we have.
I don't see any.
I did have a neighbor email Kathy this evening our letter to the township. We had a letter for the township from one of our neighbors. We didn't know where to send that, so we actually sent that email over to Kathy.
Yes, even just to check, we don't have anybody for public comment on this case too. It's here for that. And again, if you are, if you could raise your hand just so we know. All right. All right, sorry to interrupt. You can keep going.
That's okay. But guys, yeah, based off of all of our discussion with the architects and the builders, we didn't really see any other alternative on how to build this without, you know, slightly going over this line. It's that left portion of the house that you see there with the wraparound porch that is the addition that we're talking about here today.
So
The site plan.
even with that setback that we're looking at, how, so I see what you are in your distance to your actual property line. How close is your neighbor's house from there?
The neighbor's house is a good, got to be 180 feet, you know, if not more.
Is it just the porch, or?
So if you see the line there, it's the tail end of the back there that is over, and then really the porch that is over. So it's part of the one structure in the back. And that's really because of the angle the house is positioned, the way it's coming off there. That would be like a little family room. Just to give you an idea of that study that we're building is still only about 13 feet. So it's not even a really big structure. And that was about as close as we could get.
Everyone can see the shared screen, correct, with the architectural elevation up top and then the site plan, basically depicting the existing house in white and then a hashed out area, which is the new addition.
Correct.
40-foot side yard is required, and they're proposing a 32.7 inch side yard, 32 feet, 7 inches.
Correct.
Andy, is there any concerns from your side with something like this? I mean, I know we see these with the setbacks for the side yard a lot, but just figured I'd check with you.
No, I mean, I don't think there, other than the zoning implication, I don't think there's anything that we have to be concerned with, you know, in regard to the building component or even fire and life safety. There's ample room to get around. If the fire department would have to do so, they could access the back of the property.
Yeah.
And I think our job is to consider the hardship here. And Nick, are you working from home?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real life hardship right now. So.
And the problem is, Mike, and appreciate that bringing up. You know, it's a split level home. You know, the neighborhood is beautiful. We want the house that we would love, but this is the neighborhood we want. And building on a split level is not easy. You know, we had 2-3 architects, you know, come through with a couple different designs, and not one of them could come up with an idea that would allow us to build off of the back. But it was the neighbors that screamed saying, hey, that is not what we want. The one neighbor on the corner that is very far from me, his house is on an angle where it faces Newtown Road and Plymouth Road on an angle. And if I went out 10 feet and off the back, every single window is going to look out his house just staring at mine. You know, so they scream not to do that. And we all have pretty big properties. You know, everybody's just slightly under 2 acres here. And we have a beautiful property and nobody wants to ruin that view in the backyard.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world.
You're muted, Kevin, if you.
Sorry, I was looking at the application so that I could reference it. So are we able to actually bring up the agenda again,
Sure.
just so I can reference the actual application number?
Sure.
I mean, I don't have any additional questions for this. This one seems pretty straightforward in my opinion. You know, I don't know if any of the other board members do. I'll just, you know, check with them real quick. Any questions?
You want just the agenda.
No questions here.
No, I'm good.
So I will make a motion to approve application Z 2020-18. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Good luck.
Have a good night. Thanks.
And there's nothing else I need to do from here, correct?
Not from the zoning perspective, I don't know, do we have building applications yet?
No, not, you know, I've been waiting to complete the construction documents because of this, so.
Very good.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
All right. So on to application Z 2020-20 for Jim McCauley, 15 Phillips Lane, Newtown Square, PA, pertaining to the subject property seeking a special exception from section 172-103B, section 1 for garage height. The subject premise is located in the R1 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the hearing process. Is Mr. McCauley promoted forward?
I'm sorry, I apologize, I went to Mr. Chung, but that's okay, we can.
Oh, God, I jumped over one. I'm sorry. Do we want to go back? Sorry about that, Andy.
What, that's okay, whatever you'd like to do.
We want to just go with where we're at, and I'll jump back since I already looked all that out for the record.
Sure.
Sorry, Mr. Chung, if you can hear me. Yeah, if we can promote Mr. McCauley forward here.
I believe Mr. McCauley is able to speak.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. And just real quick before we get started with your application, is the file in order, Andy?
It is.
And do we have any party protestants or anybody wishing to make public comment on this case?
We have, I think Mr. McCauley raised his hand, but he's promoted. I don't see anyone else who's raised their hand to speak.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. McCauley, the floor is yours. So.
All right. Jim, before you start, I got it. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Are you able to hear me okay?
A little louder if you could, I'm hoping.
Can you hear me at this moment?
Yeah, I can.
Sounds good.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much for giving us the time to plead our case. We obviously just completed our house this past year, and as part of the construction permits to build the house, we also made provisions to build the garage, and we actually have the footers in and the concrete pad is poured. As we proceeded and we had the architect draw up the plans, we realized that, once we submitted the plans, that we had gone over what the accessory building would allow, which was 17 feet. After looking at that, it was going to be more like a 412 roof if we had to keep it at 17 feet. So what we'd like to do is go for an exception to take it to 21 feet 9 inches. And I had my daughter do an overlay to give you kind of a view of what that would look like from the street. Since we sit down at the garage level about 10 feet, on a grade level below the street, I wanted to make sure that it adjoined the house properly and looked nice aesthetically, as well as the neighbor's property as well. Excuse me. And by the way, I did reach out to all of our neighbors, both on the left and right side and across the street. I supplied them with drawings, including the photo that you're looking at. And each one of them replied back that they were comfortable with what they had seen.
So is the main reason for doing the pitch at this, with the pitch the way that it is, just to kind of keep it in line with the way that the house already looks?
Well, it's twofold. Yes, to answer your question, it is for that reason, but it's also to allow us to give us, access up. We're going to have an upstairs where we could store things, and I could actually stand up. If I was upstairs, I couldn't do this if the roof line was below that. But more importantly, I think it aesthetically fits the neighborhood, and it certainly represents what we had done with the barn, as far as the pitch of the roof.
And what were the alternatives in terms of pitch to not go this high? I know you kind of mentioned some.
Well, if we went with like a 412 roof, it would almost look like a shed, and I'd have to change the configurations on the roof trusses. And furthermore, because of the grade of the property, we were almost forced to have this type of garage in there because we couldn't get out of the limits because of the steep grade. So
Couldn't get out of the what, sir? I'm sorry. Couldn't get out of the.
we had to put the garage exactly where it's at because of the steep grade.
Oh, steep grade. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I didn't quite. That's no problem. Thank you.
So what's the standing height in the upstairs as proposed now?
You know what? I don't have that for you. It's probably going to be, I'm 5'9", so it's probably going to be about my height. Because they're going to be cross braces on the truss.
There would be a
Andy,
collar
how
top.
much is this actually over?
It's I believe the accessory building is 17 feet max, and we're asking for 21 feet 9 inches.
So technically, because Mr. McCauley's asking for storage, there'd be two components to your decision. One is the overall height, which is a variance, and then second of all, the code requires a special exception when granting for storage. I'm not so sure why, but that's the way the ordinance reads. So there would be two parts to this decision.
Well,
Shouldn't that be by right?
It's not by right. Unfortunately, that's why Mr. McCauley's here. Primarily, I think when I first reviewed the application, it was more so in regard to the overall height and the fact that it's exceeding the 17-foot limitation. But as in testimony, he's explained that he wants to use the second floor for storage. And you can do that with a special exception being granted by this board.
Understood.
I feel like my normal go-to here would be, questioning whether or not it changes the character of the neighborhood. But I do feel like this obviously is, in looking at the houses to the left and the right, a little bit different looking overall anyway. And I think that I get what you're trying to do here with the pitch to match the house. I guess you don't have any neighbors here.
I don't see anyone else raising their their hand as attendees or looking to speak. If there is anyone who wishes to do so, please feel free to raise your hand. And
I'm not going to be raising their hands there. I don't have any additional questions myself. I totally get what you're trying to do here. I'll turn it over to any of the other board members if they have any additional questions or,
And there's no plans for any plumbing, just I'm assuming electric going out to this structure?
That's correct.
All right. Andy, do you mind just bringing me back to the agenda? Sorry, let me see if I can download it to mine real
not a
quick.
problem.
Mr. McCauley, do you agree that there could be a condition, if there was an approval today, that the detached garage would not be used as an apartment?
Yeah, yes, there, I would agree with that condition. We have no intention of doing that.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, then I will make a motion to approve application Z 2020-20 with the stipulation that it will not be used as an apartment or a living space in the future. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the motion carries. Mr. McCauley, good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Got it.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to application Z 2020-19, Daniel Chung, 3660 Waynesfield Drive, Newtown Square, PA, pertaining to the subject property is seeking a variance per section 172-103D, section 2 of the Newtown Township Zoning Code for an additional accessory structure. Subject premise is located in the R1 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the hearing process. Mr. Chung, has he been promoted forward?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Great. And
Sorry about jumping ahead there and putting you one person back. Before we get started, Andy, is the file in order?
Yes, it is.
And just to make sure before we get into the case here, are there any party protestants or anybody wishing to make public comment on this case? If so, please raise your hand. All right. I'm not seeing any raised hands. Mr. Chung, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chung, before you start, you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Do I need to go on video? I don't see an icon to switch to video, so I assume not.
It's okay. You don't.
Not necessary as long as you can see.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Well, I appreciate your time tonight. I guess basically, I just start with about 3 years ago, we were looking for a home closer to our kids' school at Delaware County Christian School, and we found this plot here in Newtown Square. And one of the things that attracted me to it was that it had an existing greenhouse on the property, and I was somewhat an avid gardener, and so it was quite handy. I wouldn't say it was the most aesthetically pleasing. It was obviously a kit greenhouse made of PVC and plastic glazing, but it was highly effective and useful. And did its job. But this past year, we had some significant damage to it. And I could tell that the structure itself was well used and slightly old from the previous owners. So I thought of either repairing it or taking and replacing it. And because, as I said, it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing, I think we decided to go ahead and replace it. At which point I did apply for a permit and was told that the permit was approved, but that I would need a variance. And so that's really what I'm asking for, is just simply to be able to put in another greenhouse. And this is just another kit greenhouse. Obviously, I'm a hobbyist. I'm not a professional gardener. I have letters from both my adjacent neighbors in support of this variance approval. I do have one slide that has a picture of what it was and what the new structure may look like. I don't know if that's helpful. I misinterpreted the instructions. I should have put that on before, but I thought it was something that I would make a presentation on. I'm used to
Mr. Chung, did you send that? Is that part of our agenda packet this evening?
It is not. I interpret it as a presentation that I would give to you tonight or something like that. I can share my screen if that's allowed. If not, it's like I say, it's just a hobbyist greenhouse.
So is the new greenhouse basically covering the same footprint as
Absolutely. And it's not impervious, it's just straight into the ground.
Yeah, if I may to explain to the board, the reason why Mr. Chung's here is primarily because greenhouses are not permitted or only permitted to take up the same amount of area that an accessory shed structure already occupies in that zoning district. So because there's an existing accessory shed on the property, effectively there's two accessory structures on the lot, and the non-conforming section doesn't protect this type of thing. It would have to revert back to the current code requirements. Hence, that's the reason why Mr. Chung is here this evening. So essentially, what you're doing is offering a variance, or he's requesting a variance from section 172-103D2. And that's where it explains, the zoning code explains that a greenhouse cannot, an additional greenhouse can't be provided when you already have an existing shed structure. So that's the request.
So is there a way to protect against, I mean, are we approving to allow just a greenhouse that takes up no impervious? Like, is there, if we vote yes on this, is there a way to protect that from being turned into a shed or a garage or whatever later on?
Oh,
like if he moves, not necessarily you, but like the property itself.
Well, it's not big enough for a car really to go into. You know, it's
I'm just saying, like, not you necessarily, but like if you were to sell the house and we have this variance approved, could somebody then put like a second shed on? So Andy, what's the, are we just approving a greenhouse with no impervious?
Well, I think you're approving the greenhouse in addition, and again, I think the way you word the motion is really what provides the township protection. So what I think you're approving is simply the greenhouse and an additional greenhouse structure in addition to the existing shed structure that's on the property. So I think that would be enough.
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions on this one either. I mean, I get it. He's basically putting a greenhouse back up or where one already existed and has a shed already on the property. And I'll turn this to see if any of the other board members have any questions on this one.
No, I'm good. I agree.
All right. If there's no other questions, and I'm not seeing any hands raised from any party protestants or anyone else there, so I will make a motion to approve application Z 2020-19. Is there a second?
I'll second with the conditions of approving it for a additional structure only for a greenhouse, in addition to the existing shed structure on the property today.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Chung.
well, thank you very much. And my wife definitely thanks you as well. So I appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Good luck.
Good evening. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Now we are on to application Z 2020-21 Craft Custom Homes LLC, 231 Redwood Road, King of Prussia, PA, pertaining to 4508 Fairview Ave in Newtown Square, PA, seeking variances as per section 172-34B, section 6 for side yard setbacks, and section 172-34B, section 1 for required lot frontage. The subject premise is located in the R3 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the zoning hearing process. Do we have, who is our representative from Craft Custom Homes here?
See one hand, Ms. Shulsky.
Sorry,
Hi, good evening. Deborah Shulsky here on behalf of the applicant.
Sorry. And just before we get started too, Andy, is the file in order?
Yes, it is.
And do we have any, oh, seeing a couple of hands up here. Any party protestants, public comment here? I see we have 3 hands raised right now, 4 hands raised.
How do you want to go about this, Mr.
So
Best?
why don't we
want
do
to allow, I mean, I think that we want to hold public comment, but however, I think some folks may want to enter as a party protestant.
So if anybody wants to be a party protestant, if you want to be a party protestant, please keep your hand up. And just so you understand, a party protestant allows you to appeal our decision. If you just want to make public comment and be heard on the matter, that's fine. We will be doing that after the case is presented. But if you want to go on the record and have the ability to appeal our decision that's made on this case, that is a party protestant, please leave your hand raised and we will have you sworn in and allow them to present their case.
All right, why don't I go in order? I'll let Mr. Alexsky. Mr. Alexsky.
He's actually the client on behalf of, I have 2 people with me, Ryan Alexaki on behalf of Craft Custom. He's going to be one of my witnesses, and Nick Vistardis, our professional engineer, is also on with me.
I'm sorry, who's that second?
Nick Vistardis.
Oh, okay, very good.
And I apologize. I'm not used to this without, not that I like seeing myself personally, but I'm not used to not being able to see without my video on.
Can we have the people that are here with Craft Customs put their hands down so we know who we have to swear in here as party protestants?
Okay, I have Miss Barnes, Miss Richards, and Mr. Scrimbas. So I'll let Miss Barnes allow to talk. Miss Barnes, I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
Okay. I am the direct neighbor at 4504 Fairview, and approving this would give them literally a 5-foot difference between my property line and the beginning of their house.
Right, Miss Barnes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we want to get you on the record. Do you wish to be a party protestant?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And can I get her full name there, Andy? I'm sorry.
Suzanne Barnes.
Sue-Ann, S-U-E-A-N-N?
S-U-S-A-N-N-E.
Oh, Susan, okay, Barnes. Thank you.
And Ms. Barnes, we'll go further into your testimony and comments in a few minutes.
Sure.
So you can.
Quick question. Your address, Ms. Barnes?
4504 Fairview.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to Ms. Richards next. Ms. Richards, are you there?
I'm sorry, did I have to be sworn in, Andy? I didn't, or did they just?
I guess we can go back to that
Yeah.
I guess we're just taking party protestants. At the
Okay,
moment.
just their names for now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, Marie Richards, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Marie.
Okay.
Your address?
303 Pomona Avenue, Newtown Square.
Thank you. And I think the next, I'm asking Mr. Scrimbas to, there you go.
Hello, I'm Asterio Scrimbas. I'm the owner of the lot. I have granted permission.
Mr. Scrimbas, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just need to get your information as a party protestant, if that's what you wish to be.
No, I'm not a protester.
Okay, then if you don't mind, if you just have public comment, then we'll get to that in a little later.
I apologize. I was confused.
All right.
I assume
I have a question
on your behalf, Mr. Scrimbas, right? You said you're the lot owner?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it looks like we have, oh my God, people keep raising their hands. But I think we have all of our party protestants, on the record here, so.
That's correct.
And if we get testimony from them after that, we'll swear them in. So that's at least give an opportunity here to present the case for Ms. Shulsky.
Thank you. And I just had an initial housekeeping question for Mr. Resnick. I had submitted over to Kathy this afternoon our exhibit packages, and I'm not sure, I sent one as a full link with all of them and then separate attachments. I just want to make sure you had those.
Well, I have the site plan up on the screen at the moment. It doesn't appear that I have any additional information posted to the agenda at the moment, with the exception of the exhibit that I have on the screen now. Is there more than?
Yes, I actually have 11. Whoever's speaking may want to mute themselves. I have 11 exhibits. I don't know if you can share the screen with me, because I can pull some of them up from my end if that's easier.
Andy, I added that information, so refresh your screen and see if it shows up, because it's on my screen here at home.
Check the flyer.
Okay. Let me go back. No. Can you share the screen, Kathy? How about if I stop sharing? And Kathy, if you can share the screen that you have.
Hey guys, also in the chat, it looks like there's a Peter Massara. Mr. Massaro, are you trying to be a party protestant? Or are you just making public comment? And you can either chat in the box or come up unmuted.
All right, looks.
Kevin, Andy, you guys see that chat, right?
Yeah, I actually, I don't now. Kathy's got control of the screen. So
We can always swear him in later if he does want to go on the record as a party protestant, right, Andy?
yeah.
All right, let's continue so that they can at least present here.
All right, Ms. Shulsky, I think Kathy has your exhibits up now.
Yes, they are. Thank you very much, Kathy. And just by way of a very brief introduction before we get into the actual testimony, I just want to give the board an overview of what tonight's all about. And as I'm sure this board is very familiar with the standards for variance, probably one of the most important of them is that there's some uniqueness to the property itself. And this particular property, which is located at 4508 Fairview, is very uniquely shaped in that it's long and narrow, has a very, very limited lot width. And you'll see that one of our exhibits is the tax map, and I think you'll see how unique this property is. The lot width itself is 35 feet, which is legally non-conforming to your current requirement of 80 feet. The courts have held that a non-conforming lot conditions in of itself are uniqueness sufficient to justify a hardship. And in this particular situation, the width itself really has a corresponding scale with respect to some of the other area and bulk requirements, particularly the setback, which is why we're here tonight. The applicant is proposing a setback of 5 foot from the property line in order to accommodate a 20-foot wide minimum width of a house. And I will tell you that there is some case law to support that a 25 minimum width is the necessary in order to provide for a reasonably sized home. And actually, in that particular case, the setback was 3 feet from the house. And that applicant was asking that under that particular requirement, the setback was 16 feet. So the court did determine that there was a hardship because of the uniqueness of the property and that the lot width was minimum and that it wouldn't be reasonable to build a house that was less in scale than that 25-foot width. I also think it's important to note that there actually was a house on this particular lot, and that house was at almost the same exact location in terms of the side yard setback. So it was already at 5 feet. It actually also had encroached into the front yard setback, but this application is not seeking to encroach into the front yard. So it would strictly be a dimensional variance, which we think could also be considered de minimis, to permit the house to be basically located in the same spot where it previously was. And it's also important to note that this board granted relief for this same exact relief on 2 separate occasions over the years. So with that introduction, if the board doesn't have any initial questions for me, I would start with our first witness, who would be Ryan Alexacki.
Okay, Ryan, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you.
Ryan, can you state your name and address for the record?
Ryan A. Alexacki, 231 Redwood Road, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania.
And
oh, you faded out a little bit there. Redwood Road, was it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And with whom are you employed?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. With whom are you employed in what capacity?
I own Craft Custom Homes.
Okay. And Craft Custom Homes LLC is the equitable owner of the property subject to tonight's hearing. Is that correct?
We are.
Okay. And can you just give the board a little bit of background about your company and what types of projects you typically build?
So we specialize in infill development throughout the surrounding counties.
He's fading in and out there for me, Andy. I don't know. I can't hear him. Deborah, I'm sorry, I can't hear him.
Ryan, are you still there?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
I heard he say he specializes in, and then he dropped it.
Zoom is a challenge for me.
Yeah.
So we build infill developments throughout the area and the surrounding municipalities, specific to 5 to 10 building lots in new communities, and then these type of infill lots, which are throughout these type of neighborhoods, which there are a lot of. We construct approximately 15 to 20 single-family dwellings a year. Many of them falling under this category of narrow or smaller lots in existing neighborhoods.
And the lot itself is actually currently highlighted on the exhibit that is marked as Exhibit A5, the tax map that's currently up on the screen. And the line that's in red, that depicts the lot. Is that correct?
It does.
And can you explain generally the existing condition of the property itself?
Well, originally, approximately 10 years or so ago, there was a residential dwelling on this location. I'm very familiar with the property. I did have this property under agreement approximately 10 years ago to build a custom home for a young lady who had sought the original zoning relief. Subsequently, she had some life changes and were unable to build. And back then there was one-site septic, which was prohibitively expensive. But this lot, generally speaking, did have a construction entrance cut into it, or like a number 4 stone drive. It is 35 feet in width and extremely deep, which lends itself to meet all the necessary guidelines as far as building coverage, impervious coverage, area, things of that nature. does not allow itself under any circumstance to meet lot width or side yard setbacks.
And is it your understanding that the previous dwelling that was on the house had encroached within both the front yard and the side yard setbacks?
So if you take a look at the original Google Earth shot of this location or the original zoning hearing exhibit from approximately 10 years ago, you can see the building that was demolished. That building was in line with the structure that is to the left and the structure that is to the right, which would be encroaching into the new zoning of 45 feet.
And can you explain generally for the board what you're proposing to construct on the property?
So our proposal consists of constructing a 25-foot wide home. Depth varies slightly. The home would be between 2,250 and 2,750 square feet. We have received in the past identical zoning relief and in the past built identical homes in this exact neighborhood. 25 feet being generally accepted in all of the surrounding municipalities as the smallest acceptable single-family dwelling from a width standpoint, while the side yards of 5 feet are more narrow than the zoning district allows. It is still more than what I would consider to be a minimum side yard of 3 feet, allowing usable space for the new home without adversely impacting.
And will the proposed house be consistent with the general appearance and design of the homes in the surrounding area?
I believe so. Anybody who's familiar with Newtown Heights or any of the surrounding areas, there is a lot of infill development and new construction that has happened over the years. Again, and the house, one of the houses that we are proposing is a house that was approved previously and built in this neighborhood and gives you an appearance of a traditional 2.5-story colonial style home.
And I believe there's a few elevation plans that we have marked as Exhibit A7. If we could pull those up.
So this particular home is a more recent model. It's 25 feet in width. It is 35 feet in height, categorized as a 2.5-story home. This particular house has been granted zoning relief in several of the surrounding municipalities with varying lot widths and varying lot side yards based on current conditions. More modern farmhouse, which is popular today with the gambrel roof. But it gives you an idea on what a 25 by 35 foot house would look like. This particular house is also 25 feet in width, 35 feet in height to ridge, 2.5 stories. This is actually a house we built in Newtown Heights on 107 Chestnut Street several years ago. We did receive similar relief to construct this home on a similar size building lot that was existing. So this gives you an idea on what's being constructed in the neighborhood or would be considered acceptable or, enhancing or improving or, in relation to the surrounding area.
And do you believe that the improvements that you're proposing and the relief sought here this evening are the minimum relief necessary in order to reasonably redevelop the property for a new home?
Absolutely.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Alexaki.
I have a question. This is the solicitor. Is there any type of water problems on the property? We've had some other applications in the surrounding neighborhood that have had tremendous water problems. Has there been any type of water or soil studies conducted?
So no water or soil studies. I am familiar with water problems or a bog turtle issue in the area for my development of 107 Chestnut Street. This
I'm sorry.
particular
Could you start that answer again there, Ryan? I'm sorry. You got a little garbled in the middle there. I'm sorry.
So I am familiar with water issues in the area. I am also familiar with a bog turtle restriction that is inherent to the Newtown Heights area based on previous development. We do not expect there to be any water or soil conditions due to the fact that we sit so high on the hill. I will reference the fact that these conditions will have to be met, including any bog turtle study or environmental hazard in land development.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Lackey? Mr. Lackey, how would you handle fire department access if the adjacent neighbors installed a fence along the property line?
Were you asking me how you would handle fire truck access to the rear of the property?
Well, the adjacent property owners would have a right to install a fence.
Sure.
That would effectively cut off the fire department access that's needed to the rear of the property. To the rear of the building, I should say.
Yeah, I will say, generally speaking, I don't have the information offhand on how long an actual hose is to a fire truck. However,
we would need to be within 150 feet.
So you would be within 150 feet of the rear of my
Well, the road, the Fairview Avenue would effectively serve as a stopping point. And the fire department personnel would need to have a minimum of 10-foot wide access to get to the rear of the property.
Sure.
So if
you're asking me how they would get.
Wait a minute.
If the adjacent property owners installed a fence, which they would have a right to do, it would eliminate that 10-foot access.
That's incorrect. So fire trucks inherently are not inhibited by access unless there is a structure. So we are within 150 feet to the rear of the property. We would meet the ordinance or safety hazard to get to the rear of the property. However, to your point, if they needed to get to the rear of the property, they would either drive down the neighbor's side yard, they would drive over the fence, they would drive over the arborvitae to the left. A 6-foot high fence is not stopping access for fire control. But again, under any circumstances, the fire truck pulled into my driveway, we were within the 150 feet to get access to the rear.
But you need a minimum width to allow people to get past the burning building. So if that
there's width to the left and the right of the property, fire.
But not if
access
they put a
for
fence out.
right?
Sorry.
Access for a fire truck is not. I'm echoing a little bit, so I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm repeating.
Oh boy.
I mean, Debbie, do you have an input over here? I mean, I don't think a fire truck is even a reasonable.
It's not the truck. It's not the truck access.
Of what would be a building block structure.
Andy, can you clarify, because I think the issue is not being understood by the applicant.
Yeah, I effectively believe that the fire truck, the access stopping point for the fire truck would be on Fairview Avenue. They wouldn't access into the property.
Sure,
the distance that they have for hose, to run a hose to the rear of the property is within the 150 feet. However, to get a man down that lane alongside that home on the property would not be provided with the 5 feet.
So in Newtown Heights, there's countless homes that don't provide that access.
I'm talking about this property.
That's fine, but you can't restrict my right to develop.
Well,
based on
if there's no, we're here to really protect general welfare and safety.
Is there
well, I mean, yeah, we can sit here and go back and forth. At the end of the day, whether you want development on this lot or do not want development on this lot, you can attempt to hang your hat on a fire truck not pulling into the driveway or sitting on Fairview Avenue. The reality is I'm within 150 feet. Your point of a fence being added to any of the surrounding properties cannot restrict my right to develop my parcel. You cannot irreparably harm me as an equitable owner or Mr. Scribas as an owner because the township legally created this lot previously in the past. So the question is whether that was our house.
Excuse me, Andy.
What size house?
Ryan. We're not, I mean, for me, you know, fire trucks, that's an ordinance thing. That's a code thing within our township. And that can be, you know, that can be argued one way or the other.
Dealt in land development, right?
I'm sorry?
It could be dealt in land development.
Well, this is
It
a
would,
land development
it's a
issue.
building permit. It wouldn't be a land development.
I mean, Miller, you know, Ryan, I think the issue is, you know, you're asking for a 5-foot setback. You know, fire trucks is one thing, but to be 5 foot away from your neighbor's property, and I mean, we have what, 4 or 5 party protestants here. I understand as an American, you have a right to build on your property, but to be 5 foot away from your neighbors when the code clearly stipulates, you know, a distance greater than that, you know, we don't owe you that. So you should, you know,
I would disagree.
like I'm sorry?
I would disagree.
That we owe you this exception to the zoning
I am
ordinance?
happy to submit case law that a 25-foot house is the minimum width house that can be built on a
I don't
building
care
lot
about the
in the
width
state
of the house. I care about the setback from your neighbors.
I'm telling you on my lot, right?
I'm happy to provide the legal authority to support some of our position here, but I think what Mr. Alexakis is saying is that there is a case law that has held that the width of the house that he is proposing is the minimum reasonable size width of a house. And therefore it helps support the variance, in addition to the fact that as we know, this lot is extremely unique in terms of the length of it and the fact that it's legally non-conforming to the lot width. And obviously that does have a corresponding impact on the setbacks and the ability to comply with them. And there's numerous cases on that issue to support that uniqueness and setback relief with respect to that. And I'm happy if the board would like a short 1-page memo, I'm happy to provide that for you for your consideration.
If I may, I mean, I would agree with Ms. Shulsky that is one of the conditions of approving a variance, but the other condition would be that there's no effects to general life safety and welfare. So the safety of the occupants of this building and the potential safety of the adjacent occupants would be a consideration by this board.
But there was a house here on the same exact spot 10 years ago.
But it's
Actually,
no
it was
longer
in-
there. We're starting with a fresh slate.
I'm sorry.
Had someone come in a year within a year of the demolition of that existing building, we may be having another discussion.
So as a resident of the township, I know for a fact that the residents have expressed, especially in the Florida Park and Heights neighborhoods, some disappointment with some of the zoning decisions that were made 10 years ago. Okay, and we're a new board, and yes, there's precedent, but I don't think we should be beholden to a decision that was made 10 years ago, especially with the expressed disappointment of the residents in those 2 older neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Actually, what Mr. Lynch is indicating is something that occurred fairly recently. There was a case that was in front of the board in this general neighborhood that had been approved a number of years ago, but the time frame had elapsed to construct the house, and the applicant came back in front of the zoning board recently. Zoning board denied the request, even though there had been almost a similar application, and that case is currently on appeal in the immediate court of common pleas. So I agree with Mr. Lynch. The zoning board is not beholden to prior decisions of the board, although that is an argument that the applicant could take on appeal. But the zoning board is not bound by any decisions that were previously made by the board. Thank you.
So I'll reference a couple of different points, and I appreciate Mr. DePasquale I also appreciate the candor of the board and the residents of Newtown Heights. I understand that it was a different board that granted zoning relief. I understand that you have another prospect of a parcel that is under appeal. I also understand in the fact that this is a legal building lot. So the argument today isn't whether you agree a house is going to go here, which it will. You're arguing whether you think a 20-foot wide house is the minimum requirement for a single family home. And I respect the board's decision either way. If they don't feel a 25-foot wide house is a minimum, they feel a 22-foot wide house is a minimum, or a 20-foot wide house is a minimum. The reality is that your decision will stand on one of those aspects of this in making a determination on whether we think this is a developable parcel, which we do, and referencing the case law and all of the surrounding communities, or case law that has been appealed past zoning decisions and litigated in the courts approves these type of residences. I would like to have a broader discussion on what would be an amicable resolution to the board or the surrounding neighbors. Nobody wants litigation, a waste of taxpayer dollars. Mr. Scrimbass, the owner of the lot, is a resident of the neighborhood. Not everybody here tonight is in opposition. He does have people here tonight in favor of development. So I'd love to hear any opinions based on what is something the board considers applicable for these building lots, right? Because the difference between this lot and a 50-foot lot, taking away the being able to get a fireman down the side yard, right, is that you need side yard relief. Nothing in this neighborhood from these infill lots meets your zoning overlay that you changed. So this is what is created, these zoning matters.
And I'm not trying to cut you off here, but I know, Ms. Scholsky, do you want to try to present your full case here before we go into this?
Yeah, we can put on our engineer next.
And we have other cases to hear too, but I want to get through this the right way. And I just, I feel like it's becoming very argumentative here when the idea is for you to present your cases to what you're looking for here in terms of a variance. And we got completely off topic here, so.
Yes, we can swear in our next witness.
Yeah. Sir, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God? Whoever it is.
Nick, are you there?
Nick. Is it Nick? Oh boy.
Was that a yes? Did we lose him?
I don't hear him, Deborah.
Nick, are you still on?
Let me just ask him to unmute, I believe.
Is he muted?
He's muted.
Do you see him in the participants list?
He's
It's
in the
Nick
attendee.
Vistardis. He said he can hear us.
Vistardis. Okay, there we go.
See him as a
Okay.
participant here.
So we have Mr.
How about
Vistardis.
now?
There you go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Nick. Nick, you get that? Did you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thanks.
And can you state your name and address for the record?
Sure. Nick Vastardis, 29 Harvey Lane, Malvern, Pennsylvania.
And with whom are you employed in what capacity?
President, Vastardis Consulting Engineers.
And I know your CV has been marked as Exhibit A9. I also know that you've been previously have testified before this board and been accepted as an expert. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
And the board, I mean, he's happy to go through his qualifications, but I know he's been before you before and he has been accepted. So I would request that he be accepted as an expert in civil engineering.
I mean, I don't remember him being accepted within this board, but if you're saying that, I'm going to trust you here, so that's fine.
Thank you. Mr. Vistardis, are you familiar with the property, its features, the proposal, and the surrounding area?
Yes, I am.
And are you also familiar with the applicable regulations of the Newtown Township Zoning Ordinance?
I am.
And you heard Mr. Alexaki describe the property itself, including the existing conditions on the property?
Yes.
And you agree with Mr. Alexaki's representations with respect to the unique conditions and constraints on the property?
I do. It's a long and narrow lot, 35-foot frontage. That's basically the aggregate setback width. So it's non-conforming to the minimum width right off the bat.
And did your office prepare Exhibit A6, which is the zoning hearing exhibit, which was submitted with the application?
Yes,
Okay. And could you just briefly walk the board through that plan?
sure. We're proposing a driveway off of Fairview. The front of the house will be set back 45 feet to conform with the setback. It's a 25-foot width house with 5-foot side yards, and there's a proposed patio in the back.
And you understand that a dimensional variance is being sought to permit the side yard to be 5 foot, correct?
Correct.
And in your opinion, could a 25-foot wide house, which you heard Ryan testify was the standard size width in today's industry, be placed on this lot in compliance with that side yard setback?
With what we're asking for, you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
Does the plan that you prepared also depict the location of the house that previously existed on this property?
It does. It's marked as previously demolished dwelling. It's kind of in the front under the shaded driveway.
And is the proposed house essentially located the same side yard setback as the prior house?
Yes.
But that house was non-conforming as to the front yard setback though, right?
Yes,
And this proposal would be compliant with the front yard setback?
that's correct.
And other than the request of relief for the side yard, will the proposal otherwise comply with all applicable area and bulk requirements, including impervious coverage and building coverage?
It will.
And are you familiar with the applicable standards for variance as set forth in the zoning ordinance and the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code?
Yes.
In your professional opinion, are there unique circumstances or conditions of the property which cause an unnecessary hardship?
Yeah, it's an existing non-conforming lot. With its limited frontage, it's got a correlating impact on the proposed width of the house. The property's narrow, it's long, so you really can't comply with the setbacks. And the setbacks typically have a corresponding scale to the minimum lot width in an ordinance. And because the lot width is non-conforming here, there's much less than the minimum required. So there's an impact to the complying with the setbacks.
And in your professional opinion, can the property be developed in strict conformance with the provision of the ordinance to enable reasonable use of the property?
No, because in the ordinance, the aggregate width of the setbacks is the entire width of the lot.
And do you believe that any reasonably sized house in today's industry would similarly require the same relief?
Yes.
And given the fact that the hardship is a condition of the property itself, would you agree that it was not created by the applicant?
Yes.
Do you believe that the variance, the requested variance, would alter the essential character of the neighborhood or have any adverse impact to the surrounding area?
I don't. I think it would actually have a beneficial impact with a nice, reasonably sized house and that they're, kind of blending in with the existing homes.
And do you believe that the variance request is the minimum relief necessary and provides for the least modification?
Yes, because we're only asking for side yard relief. Everything else we can meet.
That's all the questions I have.
Do the parties protesting have any questions for this witness or the prior witness?
My name is Sue Barnes. People keep referencing the existing house that was on that lot. And that was built back in the 1920s or 30s. They didn't have such things as setbacks. And all the lots in Florida Park were divided into 35-foot lots.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
we have to swear you in if you're going to be.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Ms. Barnes, I'm sorry. Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
All right, thanks, man.
As I was saying, this original neighborhood was designed with 35-foot lots. And the house existing over there was built long before there was side setbacks and front setbacks. So of course it was not conforming. That doesn't have anything to do with allowing a non-conforming house to be built now.
Can we pull the map back up that shows the property lines?
The tax map, it was Exhibit A5.
Yeah, if you don't mind just having that up on the screen for a moment. And I guess what I'm looking for here really is to just try to see the size of some of the lots going up to it or the surrounding area. So I don't know if this will actually show us those lines in there.
You know, it's hard to see, I think just because of the way it was scanned in, but you
I know we
can,
had this discussion before, are the Z's or whatever on there, is that showing a combined lot?
those are all separate lots.
So there's just because I deal with the county a lot on some of their GIS stuff. Some of these, like this one here where the mouse is.
Oh, it's
that-
Kathy, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, that is a lot that has been merged back together.
Okay.
This Z over here, same thing. I think these here, I think Z'd out these long parcels here, so they're all one. But yeah, the Z's are areas where the lots have been merged back together. But you can see how narrow all these lots are in here. And then on the GIS system that we have at work, some of these lots were divided down the middle along here. And now they're just one big long parcel back the whole length.
And this is a question for Ms. Barnes here. Where is your house in?
I am directly next door to the property in question.
So where her mouse is at right now or on the other side?
We are to the east of the house, of the property. So we're next to them on the east side. And we actually are two lots, two 35-foot lots that my grandparents purchased and built a 25-foot wide house on. So ours is 70-foot, which is not conforming anymore.
What do we have to the other side of that lot? Is there a house there?
Yes, there is.
And is that homeowner here?
That's Pete Massaro's house.
He's the gentleman who was trying to join. He was on chat, but he didn't join the meeting. Does Pete also have a double lot, or is he in a single lot here?
It may be more than a double lot. But I would venture to say it's probably 70 foot.
Yeah, can you scroll to the aerial view, please, where it shows a picture of the area?
Thank you.
Hey, Kathy, it seems like Mr. Massaro, who lives on the other side, he's under the name Miss Lisa on our attendee list. So whoever's promoting them, Mr. Massaro is under Miss Lisa and wishes to be a party protesting.
I think I just allowed
Can you hear us?
Miss Lisa. Yes.
Oh, perfect. Don't know how that worked. Okay. So my husband is here and both me and my husband own the property to the other side of Sue Barnes.
Can we get your full name and address, please? And Tom, swear them in.
Okay. Your name, man?
Peter and Lisa Massaro.
Okay, do you both swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You spell your last name? What's that last name? I'm sorry, I should have got that.
Massaro, Massaro.
Massaro. Okay, thank you.
Are you able to see us at this point or just hear us?
We can just hear you.
We just hear you right now. You don't
Perfect.
have the camera, which is fine.
I don't need lipstick. No, I didn't find it funny.
Did you want to offer any testimony, ma'am?
Yeah, I was going to say we just swore you in. Do you have questions? Are you looking to?
Yes, well, unfortunately, the our lots, which is 2 35-foot lots wide, is impacted on the opposite side of this lot because the houses that were built on that were irregular and built actually on our property line or maybe even over. So they're, you know, on our property. We're not trying to stop anybody from building on this lot exactly, but we are, can be very impacted if they're 5 foot from our borderline and depending on what's going to.
Sir, I'm sorry, you kind of got jumbled up there. We're not trying to block and stop anybody from actually building on this lot exactly, but we are, and I missed you there.
We could be impacted greatly. Unfortunately, all that's been going on that lot for the past 20, 30 years is, you know, there's setting up, there's debris all over. It's trees have been pushed over onto our side. It's such a narrow lot that, you know, as much as I've asked the last 3 or 4 owners to sort of keep it clean and right, it just doesn't happen. So I'm concerned about what's going to happen on the lot and where the house is going to be, if a house is going to be built there, how far it's going to be from our property line. I've already tried, I don't have a garage on my property, and I've already turned in some paperwork to build a garage. And I know there has to be not only a portion, you know, away from the lot line, but also a house on that line. So my concerns are just overall, just trying to figure out the impact it's going to have. Because on Sue Barnes' side, there's no access on that side to get behind the house. And people have already tried coming down my driveway to, you know, cut trees down or do this and that. And so I'm just concerned.
Well, thank you. And Ms. Cholsky, do you have anything else?
We don't have any other presentation to make this evening. There may be some neighbors, I understand, that may want to speak in favor of the application at the appropriate time.
Yeah, I see we have a few hands up right now. And Andy or Kathy, how do we want to handle that with?
Well, I just asked Ms. Richards to unmute, so if she'd like to offer any testimony or comment.
Okay. Ms. Richards?
I can go on and see. Let me see who else.
Yeah, hi, I'm here. It's Marie Richards.
Hey, Ms. Richards, how are you?
Okay.
I just have, Tom, do you want to just swear her in?
Yeah, sure. Maria, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Richards, are you going on the record as a party protestant?
Yes.
Okay.
My question is for the property is maintaining the housing size that's in the neighborhood now. I don't think any of the neighbors object to having a home put on that property that isn't a 3-story home that just absolutely does not fit. There are large homes in the neighborhood that have been built recently, but they're certainly not on a 35-foot lot. I really think that that's the question. We would love to see that property developed, but it has to be within the conformity of the neighborhood and not something that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And I know I've heard from many of the residents in the Heights where they complain about the homes that have been built on those 35-foot lots where they're extremely high and they just don't fit. And that's what Florida Park is not looking to see done in that neighborhood.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Richards.
And I would just like to note for the record, though, that
You're
there is
welcome.
no height variance being requested, that the height is fully compliant.
Right, this is all for the side yard setbacks.
Am I able
And
to
what is the,
respond to Ms.
what
Richards?
is the,
Amen.
what is the height compliance? Excuse me, can I just ask one question? What is the height compliance?
Andy?
35.
Is there a restriction on the height of a home?
35,
What was that?
35 feet, 2.5 stories.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
Sorry, Ryan Alexacki, correct.
Oh, okay, you said. Thank you.
And Ryan, would,
I would like to,
Did you wanna
just respond. Yes.
Amen.
Ryan, I was just going to ask if you wanted to respond to the character of the neighborhood issue, because I know you're very familiar with the types of homes, and I know you spent a lot of effort to try and put something together that you thought would be very consistent with the character of that neighborhood.
I thought Ms. Richards actually brought up a very good point. And that point being the appearance of the home that would be going on this lot. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily about lot width. It's about the house width that is going to dictate how the neighbors feel from an appearance standpoint of what it looks like. And every time in surrounding municipalities, houses that get skinnier than 25 feet in width with a 35-foot height tend to look, for lack of a better word, very much like a rocket. Okay, very, very tall, very, very skinny, and neighbors end up complaining about these type of homes more so than a side yard setback for a 25-foot width. I would think in consideration if we've come to a point that this is a lot of the neighbors know that a house or are willing to see a house go here. The question is what is the best style home that they're looking to see? You know, is something tall and skinny what they're really looking for, knowing that you have the 35-foot, 2.5-story home that will be built.
And Ryan, does a smaller width house in your experience typically result more in lend itself more to renters as opposed to homeowners occupying it? So
Skinnier than 25 feet are homes that you would see in inner city developments, Antioch, Roxborough. You know, they tend to have higher height requirements than a municipality like this or an infill development. You may have a 35-foot to mid-span or a 40-foot to mid-span. They tend to be 3 or 4 full stories because the reality is when you start to sacrifice width on a 25-foot wide home, you then have to start sacrificing other items such as height, front yard requirement, you know, and to the board's point, which I appreciate, current construction code right? The 2015 code, which I'm sure Newtown Square is on, is extremely restrictive in the aspect of fire escape, egress, insulation, or energy envelope. All of these improvements in construction and restrictions are what cause the width of the homes to have to be a little bit wider. I simply can't meet 2015 energy code, fire, sprinkler, escape, egress, all of these things with homes that are end up being a little bit skinnier. At least the code that Newtown Square follows.
Where am I, Rob?
I don't know if the applicant has any interest in the following, but it sounds like some of the neighbors would like to speak with the applicants and possibly see if there's some sort of house that could be built to their satisfaction. And I'm sure there's neighbors who are going to flat out don't want anything there to begin with. But I didn't know if the applicant wanted an opportunity to ask for a 1-month continuance to speak to any of the neighbors.
So I actually, I don't have a problem at all with the 1-month continuance. I would love to speak with the neighbors. I'm happy to give them my cell phone number. I'm happy to work with the board in any capacity on what they think moving forward for their neighborhoods is what they would consider an acceptable size home for these infill lots. Typically speaking, when we've done these infill lots in Florida Park or Newtown Heights, we would have gone door to door, introduced ourselves, spoken with neighbors. Unfortunately, in the day of COVID, that's kind of frowned upon slightly. So if there's a telecommunication or something that we can do where they can express their concerns or maybe talk about what they're looking to see. I know somebody had mentioned maybe if the house was a little bit further off the street, that it may be a little bit more palatable to the two side neighbors. But we are open to all of those things. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to come to a amicable agreement which benefits all parties, neighbors included. We want to be sensitive to their needs.
And I feel like this is something we should leave to the neighboring houses on each side, right? I mean, they're going to have the largest impact in terms of this house potentially encroaching on their yard, if people are open to that.
Can I make another statement?
Absolutely.
It's Marie Richards. Yeah, I disagree with the one statement the builder was making about the renting and the buying. You look at the Valley View area and the Avenue area in Newtown Township. They're smaller homes and they are selling like hotcakes. It doesn't have to be this big grandiose home with 5 bedrooms and 3 baths and whatnot to sell. If you want to get a major high dollar amount, possibly. In Florida Park, whether or not you're going to get that amount, even for a larger home, I don't know. But a substantial home for our neighborhood would sell immediately. And I don't think that the fact that it might be smaller would present the fact that it would be a rental home. And, I mean, these are the types of homes that are being sought after in a neighborhood like Florida Park.
Hey, Andy, if we did continue this for a month, if the applicant requested it and they had their discussion with the neighbors, in that interim, could we get something from the fire department with their opinion on,
Sure.
What that would look like?
Yeah, I mean, I work hand in hand with the fire marshal every day, so I can certainly.
But just like to enter into the record from their perspective.
I can certainly ask him to write a letter or a memo explaining his opinion on the access.
Andy, I had a question. Is because either way, the builder has to come back to the board. What is the normal setback that would not require a variance?
In the R3 district, side yard setback is 35 feet, neither of which, so there's an aggregate of 35 feet, neither side yard should be less than 15.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just ask, as during this, if we do a month continuance, just to, whether it's 5 feet, is the acceptable for the neighbors, 7 feet, 10 feet, either way, any structure is going to be out of compliance, essentially.
Oh, no doubt.
So I'll just ask all those, especially the party protestants, to give a number, but just think about that, because either way, we're going to be having this exact discussion, and whether it's 5 or 10 or 15, it's still going to be tight. And I get that it's a quote, a buildable lot, and we need to all agree what looks best and what fits best for that spot. So more of a comment than, I guess, in a question at this point, but just knowing that any decision is going to still require a variance from our part.
Can I say something?
Sure.
This property is passed through like 3 different owners, and
I'm sorry, who's speaking? Who's talking? I'm sorry. Who's
Pete
talking?
Massaro.
Oh, Pete, okay, sir. Sorry, Pete. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm 4510 Fairview. Yeah, this property has passed through like 3 or 4 different owners in the last maybe 12 years. I've always tried to purchase it myself because I know Newtown Township, you're allowed to have a flag lot, and it could be like other lots there. It could have, the structure wouldn't have to be stuffed into a 35-foot zone. You could have that as a flag lot, and but all these things, nobody ever talked to me about it. And again, I've been trying to figure out what's going on with that lot for a while.
All right. So are we in agreement to do a continuance here?
I think you want to keep the record open.
Yeah.
To allow, the fire marshal's memo to be entered and any further testimony from anyone else at the December hearing.
And if we could continue it to a date certain so that it doesn't need to be re-advertised.
Yeah.
So do we want to get it on for the
December?
It is the 17th of December.
That's what it looks like, yes. Third Thursday in the month.
Just to give an opportunity here, do we have to do, if we're doing a continuance, do we have to go into public comment here for anybody that has their hands raised?
Let me see if there is any additional time
out there. I know, and I think we're still seeing a few that are raised there from, I see Michalski still has her hand raised.
Yeah, I don't see any new.
Oh, I didn't know my hand was
I
raised.
also have one additional comment.
We also have Miss Patty Wilson with a hand raised.
There you go.
It's still raised, so do we want to? Oh,
I tried. I did ask Miss Wilson to unmute.
And I have.
There you are.
This is Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. In hearing the neighbors here, I offer the following public comment. Yes, though this would appear to be an undersized lot, there are a number of factors that you can take into account. One is you don't have to worry about how much money this builder makes. You are able to put conditions on this lot, whether they are height, width, or otherwise, that keep whatever building they presume to build here in keeping with the neighborhood. And certainly the picture I saw there was of a height that wasn't in line with others. So regardless of the fact that this is a that we allow for 35 feet, the zoning hearing board, should they decide to grant these the particular variance, could certainly put conditions on this. I secondly offer, I don't know whether this particular lot in the course of having the sewage facilities put in has a lateral on it. So any condition for building, which I assume would happen as a result of the permitting, would require sewage facilities planning or payment of anything there. The third thing I offer is, though he has put this on the lot with a 5 feet and 5 feet setback, certainly in working with the neighbors, he might find that 6 feet on one side and 4 feet or 4.5 feet, in other words, creating a home that truly is in with character of the neighborhood, and the zoning hearing board putting conditions on those particular variances or the building, whatever you feel would work in this case, certainly makes more sense than listening to a builder who says, I have a right to do this. To get a grant of a variance does require that it be in keeping with the neighborhood, not just that this be a non-conforming lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Wilson.
May I make a comment here? Asterios Krimbas.
Yeah, sure. The owner of the lot, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
To the previous question, yes, there is a lateral in property. I granted the sewer the easement to do that, and I was under my understanding was that I would maintain the lot as a building lot.
As a what lot?
As a building lot.
Oh, building lot. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So he's got a lateral there. He can build on it.
So do we need to do anything here in terms of
Would the board, would be helpful too if I did provide the board with some of the case law that I mentioned earlier on in the presentation?
Oh, who cares?
Yeah, you're welcome to share that. I just.
Excuse me, did somebody just say who cares?
What?
Oh, I thought I heard a comment. A rude comment.
I think there are some party protestants still unmuted.
Okay, so moving forward here, is there anything that's required of the board here if we're going to actually have a continuance? Mr. DePasqua, anything we need to do in terms of a motion?
I would just, I believe the applicant indicated earlier, but if Ms. Shulsky would just indicate if they are seeking a 30-day continuance, and yes, the board can make a motion after that.
Certainly, we would be happy to seek a continuance to a date certain of December 17th to allow an opportunity for Mr. Alexaki to speak with some of the neighbors. And in the meantime, I also will put together a very brief summary of just some of the applicable case law and submit it to your solicitor for distribution to board members and any other interested parties.
Right, I make a motion for application Z 2020-21 to have a continuance, and we will reconvene on December 17th of 2020, hoping that the neighbors are able to come to an agreement and figure out a plan going forward. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. We will see you guys on the 17th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good night.
All right.
I don't know if everyone wanted to put their hand down who is no longer.
Yeah, so any party protestants or anyone that was on here, if you're not looking to be involved in the next case, if you could just lower your hand. All right, we still have one hand up. Let me see here real quick before we go to the next case. So we are, next up is Z 2020-22, Philip and Susan Leonard, 3422 Ivy Lane, Newtown Square, PA, pertaining to the subject property, seeking a variance as per section 172-29B, section 6 for side yard setbacks. Subject premise is located in the R1 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the zoning hearing process. Mr. and Mrs. Leonard, they've been promoted forward here. See if
Is anyone here representing this application?
Mr. or Mrs. Leonard, if you are in the attendees list, could you raise your hand so we know to promote you forward? I don't see your name. Oh, interim homes.
Kevin, I think there's somebody in there named In Homes, maybe?
Yeah, they're being promoted forward now.
Okay.
Interim
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Before we have you present your case, Andy, is the file in order?
Yes, it is.
All right, and then just checking to see if we could get a virtual hand raised from anyone who is here as a party protestant or would like to make public comment. Please raise your hand. And all right.
Let's see any.
So, Mr. Leonard or Mrs. Leonard, is that?
It's Mr. Leonard.
Mr. Leonard, okay. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out tonight. Appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, Mr. Leonard, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thanks.
So I'm asking for approval for a side yard setback per the application. The existing home is approximately 31 feet off of my neighbor's side yard property line that sits next to me. I believe there's a letter as well that accompanies the file. And the addition is actually going out the back, not out the side. So I'm seeking approval.
To the board, this is again, we've dealt with this on a number of occasions where there's an extension of an existing non-conforming setback. Our non-conforming section requires approval of that continuation. Did I lose everybody?
So is this the only drawing that we have? All right, here we go. One with measurement showing here. Are we able to zoom in on that a little bit, Kathy? Can you pull it back a little bit? Not that much. In a little, Kathy? I'm just kidding, Kathy. It's fine. Thank you.
Seriously? Is this good? Because we'll just keep going in and out. We can do a dance. You know?
Oh, you're good. Figured I would lighten the mood after. All right. So do you want to just take us through here with the drawing that we're actually looking at?
Sure. So as we're looking at the drawing, to the right is my closest neighbor. So his driveway is to the right of that. And to the left of our driveway is our other neighbor, which is well past the, I believe the 40 feet at that point, but the additions going straight out from the existing structure to, that's within the existing variance already when the house was built. So you can see it's like they're between 30 and 31 feet. So it's already non-conforming. So I'm just actually extending out the back off the existing structure.
I mean, this is pretty straightforward. You're staying in your existing house for the addition, right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I mean, this is for me a pretty simple one. I don't have a lot of questions on this, and I'll do the same thing where I'll turn it over to the board if there's any questions for any of the board members on this.
No.
No.
Just for clarification, Mr. Basquel, this would be, you're granting a special exception for this extension of a non-conformity.
Okay.
Rather than a variance.
Understood. So is there anything in terms of wording, if I make a motion to approve here that I need to put in, or just to approve the application? I'll let Dave fix that after if I mess it up, but so I will make a motion to approve application Z 2020-22. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you all. Appreciate the approval. Everyone have a good night.
You too. All right, I think we're on to our last case. All right, application Z 2020-23, Jocelyn Creparo, 3858 Meadowview Farm Road, Newtown Square, PA, pertaining to the subject property is seeking a variance as per sections 172-103E for accessory structures in the front yard. The subject premise is located in the R1 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized as being required during the zoning hearing process. Ms. Creparo, saying that correctly?
Yes, yes, it is. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Capar, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, thanks. All right, sorry, Aaron. Yeah.
Andy, the file's in order.
It is.
Ms. Creparo, the floor is yours just to present your case here.
Okay, thank you. About 2 years ago, my husband and I moved here into this end unit townhouse in the Toll Brothers community here in Newtown Square. And at the time, we weren't prepared to install a generator, but we had to get approval from the HOA and Toll Brothers for the placement of the generator. So they gave us approval to place it in this little corner, which we've provided photos next to our garage. The gas line, based on that presumed approval, was placed at the time as well, which we paid additionally for that, which is already in place and just needs the generator to be installed there. Now, recently, we finally were at a point where we were going to move forward and install the generator. But when we got when we went to get the approval from the township, we learned that there's a difference between what the HOA with Toll Brothers and the builders told us when we moved in and the township policy, in that you can't have a generator in what is considered the front yard of your house. Now, we understand that technically the area that our garage is on is considered the front yard of the house, because that's the only part of our house that faces the street. Our house is not on a corner because it's an end unit. It goes up against a berm, and then it's just public property for the community where there's a pathway, like a path to walk on. So we were told that we need to put it on that side of the house, the side that faces that path.
There's pictures in here, right? Kathy,
Yeah.
you mind scrolling down a little bit? There was some that were showing where it was going to actually go from when I looked at it, so.
So there's the garage and the corner. The street is there parallel to, next to that garage.
So is it going in this mulch bed here that we're looking at, or on the other side of the garage?
It would go in that mulch bed, and we would we would cover it with,
Oh,
with,
I
with,
saw the stipulations from the HOA for everything that has to be covered and the decibel level. You know, I know they're pretty strict on what you're doing here.
yeah, so they did approve it for us as long as we would be able to landscape it accordingly so that it would be covered appropriately.
Okay.
And our neighbors have no objection to that either. It's just that the side, if you see the pictures for the other side of the house where we need to put it, there isn't really an appropriate spot where it could fit in, where it could fit for quite a number of feet until we're well beyond the other side of our front door.
Have there been a lot of power outages in Lissitor? I'm curious for myself, just.
I've lived in Newtown Square for many years at another address, and we've always had about 3 or 4 power outages a year that have made us.
There.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeing the stipulations the HOA put on this, I personally don't have any issues with this. You know, I know they're going to make you hide it as much as possible and apparently put a humongous sound chamber over top of it from what they wanted to keep it at. But, you know, another one that I'm okay with this one, but again, we'll turn it over to the other board members to see if there's any questions.
No questions. I think if the HOA has approved, you know, and there's not, you know, a reason not to do it, especially given there's already gas and the electric there and it's not going to provide or be an additional hardship for them to move it somewhere else. I think it makes sense to, you know, see this as a reasonable request.
Well, thank you.
Any other board members, any questions or?
No, I mean, I get why the ordinance exists in the first place, but in this case, I think it makes perfect sense where they're going to put it, and I agree.
All right, then I will make a motion to approve application Z 2020-23. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for your time this evening. I know it's been a long night.
This is nothing.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, guys.